I want to kick off today's episode with a quote by famous comedian and actor Russell Brand, who had a very public battle with drug addiction. And upon completion of therapy, he admitted, "Drugs and alcohol are not my problem. Reality is my problem. Drugs and alcohol are my solution." Today we kick off part one of a two-part series on sustainable boundaries. And first, we will explore the relationship with food through the eyes of someone who has struggled with food addiction. Magdalena Meza is someone I met through a friend who is a personal trainer. At her heaviest, she was 447 pounds, and as she tells it, she didn't even know it. This is less a story about someone else's addiction and much more about all of us and how our past trauma influences our behavior and relationship with food. Just a heads up, some topics may be triggering for some, but in all, we hope it helps with the healing for those who need it. This is part podcast, part storytelling, part breaking bread. This is At the Table.
Sam, first off, how do you want to be addressed? I know that Sam is what I call you, and then I realize, you have that friend, and you realize that that's not their actual government name. So, are we doing government name today, or are we going to do Sam?
We could do Sam. I think it's easier to pronounce.
Magdalena is not hard.
Magdalena.
Magdalena? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You say it beautifully.
Magdalena is not
There you go, Jesse.
So,
Magdalena?
yeah.
No.
No.
The way she said no.
No.
Well, thank you for laughing about it. Well, this particular episode I'm excited about because it's something that it lies beneath the surface of every single conversation whenever it comes to wellness, and that is our relationship with food. And so one way we can have this discussion I thought about is perhaps talking about the ways that we are perhaps out of bounds with food, or we have an unhealthy relationship with food. So I want to talk about food addiction. But the first thing is I want to have a base understanding of what food addiction is. It's an eating behavior that involves the overconsumption or the high consumption of foods that are highly palatable. Like salty foods, sugary foods, very fatty foods. And we're usually doing it compulsively. You have a hard time stopping with it. So it's just something that you're just almost on like, autopilot in a way that you've lost control of your eating behaviors.
Okay, totally agree with that definition.
Okay, does that resonate?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to start out with you, Magdalena, and just talk a little bit about your relationship with food growing up.
It was pretty basic. I think at the beginning, we ate like anybody else, which was like pork, beef, and stuff like that. But unfortunate events happened with my grandfather. He had a triple bypass surgery, and my grandmother switched like everything and then she like started tweaking her little Mexican dishes that she wouldn't add that much oil, or she didn't even buy like Crisco anymore. Like we didn't have shortening anymore in our house. So she changed a lot of stuff for us. But also my grandmother was diabetic, so we never had real sugar in the house. We always had dietary sugar or fruit. So it's funny because people used to always ask me when I was little, "Oh yeah, what kind of cereal did you eat this morning?" I'm like, "Cornflakes." And they were like Frosted Flakes? No, cornflakes with the banana. That's your sugar.
Yeah.
Like, we just, we didn't have stuff like that. Like I said, we only ate like once a year out, if that. And majority of the time was just rice and beans.
Okay.
So, and tortillas. I mean, basic food.
Yeah.
I would see my birth father like on the weekends that we would go out, and he started introducing me to like all kinds of stuff. And I was like, "Ooh, what's this?"
Yeah.
And so I never had it. So every time I would just overconsume it. My dad got to take care of me for a few months. During those few months, unfortunately, my mother wasn't there. She had left.
Yeah.
And he didn't know how to cook. So everything we ate was fast food. So during that summer, I had gained 30 or 40 pounds. God help him. He really tried. He had made like hamburger helper. I didn't even know what that was. And him being from Mexico, he didn't know what that was. He just knew that it was something fast to do in an aisle, and he ruined Hamburger Helper for me.
Oh my God.
Man,
He ruined.
That was like a childhood memory. That's a bonus right there. That and ramen noodles.
Yeah.
Did your eating habits go back to the way they were once you moved back in with your grandparents?
When I moved in back with my grandparents, of course they did, because I had no choice. But any chance that I got that I could get something like outside, like I said, I would just overconsume it. So even if my grandmother bought like a half a gallon of ice cream from Brahms because it was a treat for all of us, we used to always get served like literally 1 cup. She always made sure we only got 1 cup. I would sneak and just be like, okay, just a few scoops. You know, I'm just gonna scrape the top. Little did I know, after scraping, it was gone.
Yeah.
And I would be like, oh, I'm going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
I'm going to be in so much trouble.
I want to stay right there at that moment where you're scraping at the ice cream. Can you remember how you felt when you had those scoops?
I felt like I couldn't help myself. So that's what I'm saying. Even when I was like, okay, I'm just going to scrape a little bit off the top, and then all of a sudden it was gone, I was like, oh, crap.
Yeah. But you were thinking more, more like, oh crap, because you're going to get in trouble.
Right.
About that.
Right. And I wasn't thinking about the consequences I was doing toward my body
Right.
at that time. Moving in with my father and him not really being like the main person who raised me, he didn't know how to be a dad.
Yeah.
And being from Mexico and coming here, of course you want to give your child everything that you never had. So we went out to eat all the time, every day.
Yeah.
I liked it. I loved it.
Yeah.
I didn't have to do dishes.
Yeah.
I had no responsibility. I kept gaining weight naturally. Because at this point in time, I was no longer in athletics in high school. I was just doing hood rat things with my hood rat friends. And all I was doing, like, eating whenever I wanted. Like, there was no limits with my dad.
Yeah.
And every day he would call me on the way home. Hey, I'm going to stop at the gas station, hija. What do you want? I was like, can I get a Snickers and an ice cream? Yeah. Can I get some chips too? Can I get some Flamin' Hot Cheetos? Yeah. And I'm like, hey, if you're stopping at that one gas station, can you give me a elote too?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would literally consume all this before we even ate dinner. Got pregnant with my daughter when I was 16, which made things so much worse.
Yes.
You wouldn't think, because especially when I got pregnant with her, I couldn't eat meat like the first 5-6 months.
Wow.
It was horrible. Anytime I smelt meat, looked at me, I was puking my brains out. So she was a fruit and veggie kid. And it's funny because at the beginning, you couldn't even tell I was pregnant. So I was like, okay, I'm not gaining no weight. This is great.
Yeah.
My 6th or 7th month kicked in, and I just started craving nothing but meat, but fatty meats.
Like brisket.
Brisket, burgers, just red meat, like all the time. What did I do every day before I went to school? Stopped at the donut shop.
Ooh, get you one of them kolaches.
I got the, how do you call them?
Kolaches.
Pigs in a blanket.
Okay.
Pigs
Yes.
in a
Thank you.
Yeah.
The salchicha in the thing. Yes, that. So I would get like 3 jumbo ones, and then plus I would get donuts and coffee and everything just before I even caught the bus to school.
Could you see some of the weight gain then?
Yes.
Okay.
I was high risk pregnancy and everything else like that due to health issues I already had at that time. So, which was like my heart murmur, and I was asthmatic. So they were like, we only need you. The doctor recommended they only needed me to go half a day to school and then just rest. For lunch, I would go to Brahms and get a triple meat burger with cheese and bacon, everything, extra mayo, a large fry with gravy because I needed the fries to dip in the gravy, and a banana split to finish it off.
What was your eating pattern like after you had your baby?
So I had gained about 80 pounds when I was pregnant with her. So I was started at 200.
Okay.
So when I was 200 pounds, I was an athletic 200. I used to lift weights and stuff all the time. I was always exercising. Like I said, I was in a lot of sports when I was in school.
Right.
So I was 280, 285 by the time I had her. I actually got back down to about 230, 235, somewhere around there. So it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm on the right road. I'm going in the right direction here. Of course, I was looking for a job. And trying to juggle a job and a newborn baby and school. I actually wrecked my car.
Oh, gosh.
Because I fell asleep at the wheel. And the whole frame was messed up. And I was like, I can't keep doing this. So I dropped out of school. Majority of the time I was home. It was just me and my daughter. What's the funny part is that I made all my daughter's baby food. My daughter didn't eat like I did. I would eat a Cheeto. She would have something else totally different, like strawberries or something in her mouth. And I think it's because I didn't want her to be like me.
If you don't mind sharing, how heavy were you by this point that you realized your food addiction?
In all fairness, I did not notice until I was at the biggest.
Okay.
So I was like 447.
Okay.
So near 450 pounds. I didn't notice because everything I wore was stretchy. Mm-hmm. So since I never put on clothes anymore and I never really went out anymore, I didn't notice it until my friend had a wedding. And I was like, oh, yay, I get to dress up. I get to go out, I get to enjoy myself. And so I told my best friend, let's go to Lane Bryant. And I was like, give me the biggest size they have, because that was the size that I had worn before, which was a size 28. Mm-hmm. He goes, okay. He went to go get it and everything. I couldn't fit the clothes past my knees. It was the biggest size they carried, and I couldn't fit it past my knees. But at that point in time, good Lord, I cried in that dressing room. And he asked me what's wrong, and I was like, it doesn't fit. And he was like, what do you mean it doesn't fit? He saw me like almost every day. So hell, he didn't really notice either that I had gained that much weight.
Yeah.
So at this point, all I did was hate myself. More than I already did.
Are you putting together this like, okay, everything that I've been internalizing is now?
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't. I just chalked it up to the point that, it's because I'm not as active as I used to be.
Mm-hmm. You're trying to out-train it.
Yes. It was just when I finally had realized one day I was actually eating. Mm-hmm. And my mind is somewhere else. I'm just staring off into space at this point. And my best friend goes, hey. And I looked at him. He goes, are you with me? And I said, what? And he goes, you do realize this entire time you've been like eating? And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, it's like a mindless act. He's like, you just keep shoving stuff in your, in your mouth, and you're just not thinking, you're not processing it. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, it kind of made me think, like, how often do I do this? Like.
That was that light bulb moment for
yes, you? It really was. I started not only like going to the whole boot camp with Josh, my trainer. Well, my ex-trainer.
Yeah.
So we've been best friends since we were 15.
So he's kind of seen your evolution then.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I remember he used to tell me all the time, you can stop, or you can start whenever you want. No pressure. Mm-hmm. He would just convince me, just come out just one time.
Yeah.
It's okay. So not only did I start that with the whole boot camp, and like I said, I couldn't even finish warm-ups at the beginning, but he told me, you can't out-train a bad diet. I got really lazy when it came to cooking. I just wanted something fast and easy. For Christ's sake, why? When I had the time to do what I needed to do, but it was just, you get into this loop. Hey, I have kids. Hey, I have this to do. I have that to do. You make excuses.
Well, it was also modeled to you, as a young age. I mean, this is your father all over again, right? Like, he just was grabbing the hamburger helper, which, by the way, is like a product that is heavily advertise to parents as a healthy alternative because it's so quick and easy, and they show these commercials. Kids love it and whatnot. So, you know, you can't even blame your father if he doesn't know how to cook, but he's saying, oh, I've seen this commercial several times now. I make this dish, the kids love it, nourishment. You got that. Plus, I mean, from your own admission, like a lot of the pride that he had as a father was being able to provide better opportunities and more things for his kids than he would have been able to if he was back in Mexico. It sounds like you're almost mirroring some of that behavior. But what's interesting about your story, though, too, is when you're talking about your grandmother, that she was heavy set and she had perhaps an unhealthy relationship with food. And it's like, let me go ahead and change it. And that's what you were trying to do initially. That's the same thing that you did initially, too, right after you had your daughter.
Right.
Yeah. But that part didn't last.
No.
Okay.
No, because even with them when they were little, I was always getting like pizza rolls or toaster strudels. You know, something easy for them to make if I was busy, or, hey, this is something quick and easy.
Do you think that there were any other outside influences on your food addiction?
My ex-spouse definitely always encouraged me to, this is after I had started training, by the way, and changing the way I ate. He would, especially when I was training for my Spartans, he would be like, here, this honey bun is so good. And I would just look at him like, I can't eat that right now.
Did he work out? And
No.
He didn't eat well?
No.
Okay.
His diet was pretty poor. I always try to make sure that he ate well. But he would bring me home like a family size bag of Flamin' Hot Cheetos, or he would bring me home a cupcake, or just something almost every day.
It sounds like he's like the little devil lick on the shoulder, like in the cartoons. Like, you're over here, I want to do my egg whites and this, and he's over here. Yeah, with that patty melt. That bacon. Put that bacon on there, and put extra cheese. Ain't it good? Yeah.
Over the years, in working with many people on their wellness goals, a common thread has emerged: the lack of an adequate support system to motivate them to achieve goals. Magdalena is caught between who she desires to be and who others want her to remain. And since she can only go as far as she's seen, she feels stuck. And oddly enough, her relationship with food mirrors that of her grandmother's in many ways. Studies have shown that without positive encouragement from those around you, overcoming addiction becomes challenging, if not impossible.
There's this gentleman, Dr. Perry, and he talks a little bit about the linkage between past trauma and our basically the way that we respond to certain things, and people who experience a lot of trauma in their life, especially as children, the way that they handle stress is a lot different, and they are much more prone to addictive behaviors because of that, because it's all about self-regulating and trying to, you know, get back to this like reward system, you know, like you do things that actually make you feel good, right? So food is one of those things that it releases that dopamine, especially foods that are highly caloric. And then all of a sudden when you come to and there's no more food, or you've overeaten, now you feel that other feeling quickly fades away, and the internal demonization begins to begin again. And all those things that you were worried about, all the, you know, the stress of whatnot, the reasons why are still there. Do you agree with that approach? And is there past trauma in your life?
Definitely agree with that approach. You taught me something new today. That makes a lot of sense. It really does. And of course, I had childhood trauma, things that happened with my mother. My mother went to prison when I was about 4 years old. And that's the reason why I lived with my grandparents, because they had legal guardianship of us. And then they gave her another chance when I was about 7 years old. It lasted about a year. She was really abusive. And that's when she had left again. That's when I had lived with my dad for that 3 months.
Yeah.
So when she had left, it was normal for her to leave for a few days or for a week. You know, she'd go on a binge, whatever she was doing. And he'd be like, she'll be back. he really thought she was coming back.
Yeah.
And so when she didn't come back for 3 months, of course, he already handed my sister, because that wasn't his daughter, my sister back over to my grandparents after the first month, because he was like, I can't afford to take care of both of y'all. And this is when my dad was illegal and only getting paid like $1.50 an hour. So he was like, I can't afford the rent. We're about to be evicted. I can't afford this anymore. And he had no choice but to give me back to my grandparents. But not only was she abusive to us, it was anybody in her life. I witnessed her stabbing my father in the kitchen. And I don't mean like just a little bit.
Yeah.
She literally got the shears from here to here and sliced him open.
Oh my God.
And I remember blood and stuff being everywhere and glass being everywhere from their argument. A lot of the times they argued about me. So I had a lot of, I blamed myself a lot when I was a kid. But not only that, of course, there was outside things. We lived in the projects and there was always shootouts and stuff happening. I remember me and my sister used to go outside and pick up the shells and be like, what gun does this belong to?
Yeah.
We made a game about it.
Did your mom ever struggle with food addiction or your father?
Yes. She got heavy for a little bit, but it was mostly drug addiction. Me, unfortunately, I struggled with both as well when I was younger. So, yeah. So I've been 14, 15 years I've been sober.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So
Congratulations with that.
That's amazing.
It's first off, your story is remarkable and for so many reasons. It's not uncommon for people to come from households that have a high level of stress. And some dominant figure, maybe a parent, is like exuding and exercising a lot of energy. They turn to their own form of coping, of addiction, right? Very eye-opening to listen to your story that because you're seeing these things play out, like the importance of when they say go to the gym. No, they actually really mean it. Go to the gym. Oh, people aren't supportive in my household. That's why you got to go to the gym. You got to put yourself in a community surround yourself with people who can reinforce that, and then you see their reward system. So all of a sudden, when they're stressed out, how they handle it is a little bit different. Now, I will say this: I do think it's interesting, right, that you have these guys come and, hey, I'm trying to get ripped, I'm trying to lean out, and I'm like, did you break up? Yeah, but that doesn't have anything to do with it. Okay. We just move one compulsion to another.
Yeah.
If we don't unpack what happened to us, if we don't unpack all that trauma in our lives, how do we heal?
for me was finding God. In all fairness, I was atheist by the time I was 8 years old. My mother was very quote unquote religious, but still did what she did. Mm-hmm. And there was times that she would like just really hit me, mm-hmm. and she would blame God for it. It really messed up my psyche as a child. Seriously. And I was like, you know what?
That's deep.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to believe in God. Like, if God does this, I don't want nothing to do with it. One of like my really old friends from back in the day, she really like came over addiction. And she went to the Potter's house. So I finally worked up the courage to go to the Potter's house. And TD Jakes is amazing. Mm-hmm. So I literally went religiously with her for a few months, every Sunday. I remember I was like, dude, I'm gonna have to start bringing a snack. This thing is so long.
She ain't lying. She is not telling you. I love my pastor, but she is not lying. That'd be a 3-hour service.
Yes.
He's closing out that service for about an hour and a half.
Like, as I hasten to a close. Bishop, we've been hastening for now 45 minutes now.
But it was one of the times that I had went when they were like, come to the front. I didn't go to the front because, again, anxiety. But I did stand in the aisle and hold some other people's hands. I remember my left hand being empty because there was nobody to my left. And I had felt like a really great presence. Yeah. And I felt warm. Sorry. And I just felt love. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, I just said yes. Like, do you accept Jesus? Yes. Mm-hmm. And I was just just overcome with this feeling. And at that point in time, I can actually start saying that I started processing my past trauma. Even though I was already training and trying to change my diet and stuff like that. And it took me a couple years, but I remember I talked to my mother and I told her I forgave her. It was a lot to let go.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So that is very, it's very moving to hear that. And this idea, like you said, like you just felt peace in that moment, saying yes. Did you feel someone like holding your hand?
Yes.
Can I ask you, in that moment too, like, were you thinking about that little girl that you were in that moment? Feeling just like,
I thought about the little girl. I thought about everything that I have done and everything I was letting go, like in that moment. And I actually got baptized officially last year. I became Catholic.
Yeah.
Which is totally different from the Potter's house, but TD Jakes really kind of paved the way.
Yeah.
So would it be fair to say then, I guess, the way that you started to unpack your food addiction was the recognition that you weren't okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right. And then what are some of the habits or the behaviors that you did change around food whenever you would use it as a coping mechanism?
I would go work out. I literally started doing more for myself when it came to food. So I started reading nutritional facts because every once in a while, like I said, I would still eat chips, or I'd be like, you know what? Are crackers better than chips? I had so many questions.
Yeah.
Little by little, I was literally like not shopping, non-existent in the middle aisles.
Yeah.
Like everything was fresh meat and fresh fruit and vegetables.
Little by little, though.
Yeah.
Little by little, though, because like every time I would pick it up, and it's so funny because my kids started doing it too.
That's awesome.
I had noticed, they were like, I want a snack. I'm like, well, what do you want? And they would be like, well, can I get this candy, or can I get these chips? And I would watch my daughter and my son, they'd be looking at the nutritional facts, and I was like, okay, what are y'all doing?
Yeah.
And they're like, we see you doing all the time. What's a good amount? And they started asking questions. And I used to take my kids with me all the time when I worked out. Them developing healthy habits, it made me really proud.
Knowing what you know now about food, knowing what you know now about the past trauma that you received, like, would you still go and have like a regular bag of chips, understanding that, like what you know now?
No.
Okay. Why not?
Because it could get out of hand. Like I said, me doing it the way I do now with the individual bags, I think it's a healthier way. If you're going to enjoy something, by all means enjoy it.
Yeah.
No food should be off limits, but it should be controlled. Like portion control is huge. If we're not looking at ourselves and processing everything and processing our feelings, things like that, don't have anybody to open up to, by all means, there's like other resources that you can contact with. Even suicide lines, believe me, I've called them before. You really need a good support system, and surround yourself on who you want to be, or the type of people you want to be. Hence why I talk to you.
What would you tell that young Magdalena who snuck in there to scrape some of the ice cream just for that one scoop? What would you say to her right now?
Put it down. Put it down, because it leads to a bigger problem and health issues, obviously. If I could have maintained the same athleticism and stuff that I used to have without the food addiction, and just be healthy and happy, I think my life would be way better than what it is right now. But my quality of life right now, even with having diabetes and stuff like that, is pretty well controlled.
9 years ago, you were on the 447, you said? Wait, you were...
Yeah. I was about 447 pounds about 10 years ago.
And then where are you today in terms of your wellness journey, and if you want to share?
So currently weigh 286. So it's about 160, 161, somewhere around there.
It's a whole person.
A whole person. I lost a
Congrats
whole
on that.
person.
It's awesome. Man.
I actually keep one pair of sweats that I used to wear when I was bigger. One pair.
Okay.
And I used to wear a 5X tall tee that was tight on me. And so sometimes when I, like, especially when I moved and stuff, I had found that pair of sweats. And I was like, I'm going to put it on. And to be like this and like fit like almost pretty much in one leg and to have like a whole person missing from me,
Yeah.
it's great. Because, you know, every day that you make a decision. Every day you make a decision. And every day you consciously are going to say no to whatever addiction that you have.
Yeah.
Whether it be drugs, food, it doesn't matter. Every day is a decision. Every day is brand spanking new.
Yeah.
And what you do with today, that is up to you. So every day I choose to walk in the same direction I have been going forward.
Yeah.
And by all means, if you do not serve that purpose in my life, you will be gone.
Yeah. It's a great piece of advice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Community is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Because if you keep on doing the same thing, hanging out with the same people, it's just it's a horrible roller coaster. Well, it's not even a roller coaster, it's a merry-go-round because it's going in the same direction. That's all we're doing. We're going in the same direction over and over again, and you want to avoid that at all costs. And it's like, you may love these people, don't get me wrong. There's been plenty of people I've cut out in my life. I love them with all my heart. I wish no ill intent.
You just don't need them speaking into your
Exactly
life about those things anymore.
And I pray for them all the time. It's just, I don't need you to be sitting at my table.
What a great piece of advice. Not everyone can come at the table. You gotta. Thank you so much for opening up. I know that was very hard in some spots, but I thank you for your vulnerability. I think a lot of people can see themselves in many parts of your story. I know that I saw myself and was just like, I can definitely relate to that type of stress eating. So we're gonna cheers to you. We're gonna toast to you. To the next chapter of wellness. All right.
Yes. Salud.
Overcoming disordered eating requires work, but it's doable. Recognizing you have a problem is one of the most powerful things you will ever do for yourself and is the first step to recovery and establishing better boundaries with food. Then, creating and cultivating an environment to be successful is equally important. You need the positive encouragement and support from people and even things that are in your orbit. Going to therapy to unpack past trauma, learning to prepare your meals in more healthful ways, and staying active are proven ways to cultivating a relationship with food that accelerates the various goals in all aspects of your life. That's it for today. Thank you for joining us at the table. You can get the full audio version wherever you choose to get your podcast. Just search At the Table. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for daily food inspiration at FitMenCook. And until next time, y'all, keep it healthful, but of course, never, ever boring.